The sun shone brightly over the green hill where our kids were playing hide and seek. Their laughter echoed through the warm afternoon air, filling me with a sense of pride and joy. I watched them, lost in the simplicity of the moment when my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a message from Kate. "Having so much fun at the festival. Can't wait to tell you everything." I smiled, feeling a mix of happiness for her and a strange twinge of unease. Kate had always been a passionate comic book fan, and she had been looking forward to this trip to San Diego Comic-Con for months. I stayed home with the kids so she could fully immerse herself in the experience. She deserved this break, I told myself. Yet, there was an inexplicable knot in my stomach as I read her message again. "Sounds amazing. Enjoy every moment," I replied, trying to push aside my uneasiness. Kate had been planning this trip meticulously. She had her costume ready, her favorite panels marked on the schedule, and a list of artists she wanted to meet. She was like a kid in a candy store, eager to dive into the world she loved so much. I couldn't help but admire her enthusiasm and dedication. That evening, after the kids were tucked into bed, I found myself scrolling through social media. Kate had posted several pictures from the festival, her posing with a life-size superhero statue, attending a panel discussion, and most notably, a photo with David, a well-known comic book artist. They both looked so happy, their smiles wide and genuine. David was someone Kate had mentioned before. He was famous for his work on several iconic comic book series and was conducting workshops at the festival. I remembered her excitement when she found out he would be there. They had apparently hit it off, bonding over their mutual love for the art and storytelling of comics. The days went by and Kate continued to send updates. She attended more panels, met more artists, and seemed to be having the time of her life. I was glad for her, but there was still that nagging feeling I couldn't shake. Maybe it was just me missing her presence at home, or perhaps it was the realization that we hadn't shared this kind of excitement together in a long time. When Kate finally returned home, she was radiant and full of stories and memories from the festival. Her eyes sparkled with an energy I hadn't seen in a while. She couldn't stop talking about all the amazing experiences she had and the incredible people she met. But there was one name that came up more than the others: David. "He was just so inspiring," Kate gushed, as we sat on the couch that evening. We talked for hours about his work and his journey in the comic book industry. "He's so passionate and driven. It was incredible to meet someone who shares the same love for comics as I do." I listened, trying to share in her excitement, but that knot in my stomach tightened. There was something in the way she talked about him, a spark that hadn't been there before. I tried to push the thoughts away, to focus on the joy in her voice and the light in her eyes, but it wasn't easy. As the days passed, I began to notice little changes. Kate was on her phone more often, laughing at messages and looking distant at times. She seemed happier, but also more distracted. I told myself it was just the afterglow of the festival, and that she would settle back into our routine soon enough. Then one night, everything changed. Kate had left her phone on the kitchen counter while she went to take a shower. It buzzed with a new message, and out of curiosity, I glanced at the screen. It was from David. "Miss you already. Can't wait to see you again." My heart pounded in my chest as I stared at the message. A flood of emotions hit me all at once: anger, betrayal, confusion. When Kate came back, I couldn't hold it in any longer. "Who's David?" I demanded, my voice trembling with a mix of rage and fear. She froze, her eyes wide with shock. "Mark, it's not what you think." But the truth was out there, hanging heavy in the air between us. The festival that was supposed to be a dream come true had turned into a nightmare, one that would test the very foundation of our marriage. The silence that followed Kate's words was deafening. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears as I waited for her to explain. She stood there, looking torn between anger and guilt, her mouth opening and closing as if searching for the right words. "Mark, it was just a mistake," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I got caught up in the moment. David and we connected, but it didn't mean anything. I promise." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to cling to the hope that this was just a fleeting lapse in judgment, but the pain in my chest told me otherwise. "Didn't mean anything?" I echoed, my voice breaking. "Kate, you've been talking about him nonstop. You've been distant, distracted. It clearly meant something." She stepped closer, reaching out to touch my arm, but I pulled away. "Mark, please. I know I messed up, but I love you. I love our family. David was. He was just a fantasy, a distraction. He doesn't matter. Her words stung, but they also gave me a sliver of hope. Maybe this really was just a mistake, something we could work through. But the trust we had built over the years was shattered, and I didn't know if it could be repaired. How far did it go? I asked, my voice shaking. Did you sleep with him? Kate's eyes filled with tears and she shook her head. No, Mark. We kissed, and there were messages, but it never went further than that. I swear. I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. But the doubt lingered, gnawing at me. We need to figure this out, I said, my voice firmer than I felt. For us, for the kids. We can't just sweep this under the rug. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I know. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make this right. Counseling, therapy, anything. Just please don't give up on us. The days that followed were a blur of raw emotions and tense conversations. We decided to see a marriage counselor, hoping that a neutral party could help us navigate this storm. Our first session was filled with awkward silences and tentative words, but it was a start. Kate was committed, and I could see that she was genuinely remorseful. She poured her heart out in those sessions, talking about how she had felt neglected and unappreciated, how she had found an escape in the excitement of the festival and the attention from David. It was painful to hear, but it was also a wake-up call. I realized that I had been taking our relationship for granted, getting caught up in the daily grind and losing sight of what mattered most. Our love had become routine, and we had stopped putting in the effort to keep the spark alive. Kate's betrayal was a symptom of a deeper issue, one that we both needed to address. Despite the progress we made in therapy, the doubt still lingered. I found myself questioning everything, every late night at work, every glance at her phone, every mention of a new friend. The trust that had once been so solid was now fragile and brittle, and I didn't know if it could ever be fully restored. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the kids play in the yard, Kate reached over and took my hand. Mark, I know this is hard. I know I've hurt you deeply. But I believe we can get through this. I believe in us. I looked into her eyes, seeing the sincerity and hope there. I want to believe that too, I said quietly. But it's going to take time. We need to rebuild what we lost. She nodded, squeezing my hand. I know, and I'm willing to put in the work, every day for as long as it takes. As the sun set, casting a warm glow over our home, I felt a flicker of hope. It was faint, but it was there. We had a long road ahead of us, filled with challenges and heartache. But maybe, just maybe, we could find our way back to each other. The next few weeks were some of the hardest in my life. Each day felt like a battle between my lingering doubts and the desire to rebuild our marriage. Kate and I attended counseling sessions regularly, and while they were often painful, they also provided a space for us to communicate honestly and openly. During one session, our counselor, Dr. Hayes, asked us to write letters to each other, detailing our feelings and hopes for the future. I spent hours crafting my letter, struggling to find the right words. When the time came to share them, I was nervous, but I knew it was necessary. Kate went first. She read her letter aloud, her voice trembling with emotion. Mark, I know I broke your trust, and for that I am deeply sorry. I allowed myself to get swept up in a moment, and I hurt you in ways I can't even begin to understand. But I want you to know that I love you more than anything. I want to rebuild what we've lost and create an even stronger bond between us. I'm committed to making things right, no matter how long it takes. As she finished, tears streamed down her face. I could see the sincerity in her eyes, and it gave me the strength to read my own letter. Kate, your betrayal has shaken me to my core. I feel lost and unsure of our future, but I also see the effort you're making to fix things. I know that we both have to work on this, not just you. I want to rebuild our trust and rekindle the love that brought us together in the first place. It's going to be a long journey, but I'm willing to take it with you. The letters marked a turning point for us. They opened up a deeper level of understanding and empathy. We began to work on the small things that had fallen by the wayside. Date nights, meaningful conversations, and simply spending time together without distractions. One Saturday, I surprised Kate with a picnic in the park where we had our first date. As we sat on the blanket, reminiscing about old times, I felt a warmth that had been missing for so long. We laughed and talked for hours, and for the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope. But the road to healing wasn't without its bumps. One night, I saw a notification from David pop up on Kate's phone while she was in the kitchen. My heart raced as I picked up the phone, my mind filled with worst-case scenarios. The message was innocent, a simple update about a new comic book release, but it still stung. When Kate returned, I confronted her about it. "Why is David still messaging you?" She looked taken aback, then remorseful. "Mark, I told him we needed to keep things professional. I didn't want to cut off all contact abruptly and make things awkward in the comic book community. I promised there's nothing going on." I wanted to believe her, but the old doubts resurfaced. "I need to know that you're completely committed to us," I said. "I need transparency." She nodded, her eyes earnest. "You can have access to my phone anytime. I'll even block him if that's what you need." It was a difficult step, but she did it. She blocked David and showed me the message she sent him explaining why. It was a small gesture, but it meant a lot. As the months passed, we continued to rebuild. Trust, once broken, is hard to mend. But with each honest conversation and each small act of love and commitment, we inched closer to where we wanted to be. Our counselor helped us navigate the complex emotions, providing tools and strategies to strengthen our bond. One evening, as we sat together on the porch, Kate leaned into me. "Mark, I know we've been through a lot, but I truly believe we're coming out stronger on the other side." I wrapped my arm around her, feeling the warmth of her presence. "I believe that too," I said. "We've still got a long way to go, but as long as we're both willing to put in the effort, I think we can make it." Our journey was far from over, but we were moving forward, step by step. Rebuilding trust was a slow and painful process, but with each passing day, I felt a little more hopeful. For the first time in a long time, I believed that we could overcome this and emerge stronger, together. As we continued our journey to rebuild our marriage, life moved forward, but the shadow of doubt still lingered. Despite Kate's efforts to prove her commitment and my determination to trust her again, moments of insecurity would surface, threatening to undo the progress we had made. One particularly difficult evening came when I found myself alone in the living room, scrolling through social media. Kate was upstairs, putting the kids to bed. An old friend had posted pictures from a recent comic book convention, and as I scrolled through the images, I couldn't help but feel a pang of anxiety. I stumbled upon a photo of David, surrounded by fans, signing autographs with that familiar smile on his face. My chest tightened, and before I knew it, I was deep diving into his profile, looking for any sign of Kate's involvement. There were no new pictures of them together, but the mere sight of him brought back a flood of memories and insecurities. When Kate came downstairs, I must have looked troubled because she immediately asked, "Mark, what's wrong?" I hesitated, feeling ashamed of my lingering doubts. "I saw some pictures from the convention online. David was there. It just brought everything back." She sighed and sat next to me, taking my hand in hers. "Mark, I understand why you feel this way. It's not easy, and I don't expect these feelings to just disappear. But I want you to know that I'm here, and I'm committed to us. I haven't spoken to him since I blocked him. You can trust me." I wanted to believe her, and deep down I knew she was telling the truth. But the wounds were still fresh, and trust was fragile. "It's just hard," I admitted. "Every time I see something that reminds me of him, it feels like a punch to the gut." Kate squeezed my hand. "I know, and I'm willing to keep proving myself to you every single day. I love you, Mark. We'll get through this." Her words provided some comfort, but it was clear that this was going to be a long and difficult process. We continued our counseling sessions, which helped us communicate better and address the underlying issues in our relationship. We worked on rebuilding the intimacy that had been lost, both emotionally and physically. One evening, during a particularly intense counseling session, Dr. Hayes asked us to discuss our fears. Kate went first, her voice trembling as she spoke. "I'm afraid that no matter what I do, I'll never be able to make up for what I've done," she confessed. "I'm scared that this mistake will haunt us forever, and that Mark will never fully trust me again." Hearing her fears laid bare like that was both heartbreaking and eye-opening. I realized that she was struggling just as much as I was, and that this journey was about healing both of us. When it was my turn, I took a deep breath and spoke from the heart. "I'm afraid of being hurt again. I don't know if I can handle another betrayal, but I also fear that my doubts and insecurities will push Kate away, that I'll never be able to fully let go of this pain and trust her completely. Dr. Hayes nodded, giving us both a moment to process each other's fears. These fears are valid and understandable, she said, but acknowledging them is the first step toward overcoming them. You both need to continue working on rebuilding trust, not just in each other, but in yourselves. In the weeks that followed, we made a conscious effort to support each other's healing. We established new routines that brought us closer, like weekly date nights and open, honest conversations about our feelings. We also focused on creating positive memories together, moments that would help overshadow the painful ones. One sunny afternoon, we decided to take the kids to the beach. It was a beautiful day, the sky clear and the waves gentle. We built sandcastles, played in the water, and laughed more than we had in months. As the sun began to set, we sat together, watching the colors dance across the sky. Kate leaned into me, resting her head on my shoulder. "This is nice," she whispered. "I feel like we're starting to find our way back to each other." I wrapped my arm around her, feeling a sense of peace that had been elusive for so long. "Yeah, it is nice. I think we're getting there, one step at a time." As the days turned into weeks and weeks into months, we continued to navigate the ups and downs of our journey. There were still moments of doubt and fear, but they became less frequent as we focused on building a new foundation of trust and love. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't perfect, but it was real, and it was ours. For the first time since the betrayal, I felt a genuine sense of hope for our future. We were healing, together, and I began to believe that our love could withstand even the toughest of storms. The slow process of rebuilding our marriage was a fragile yet hopeful endeavor. Every day, Kate and I worked on restoring what was broken, slowly but surely creating a new foundation. However, just when it seemed like we were finding our rhythm, an unexpected event threatened to unravel everything. One evening, as we sat down for dinner, Kate's phone rang. She glanced at the screen and her face paled slightly. "It's from the comic book store," she said, standing up to take the call in the other room. I tried to ignore the unease that gnawed at me as she walked away. When she returned, she looked troubled. "Mark, there's something I need to tell you," she began, her voice shaking. "David is going to be in town for a signing event at the local comic book store next weekend. The store owner just called to see if I wanted to attend, given my past involvement." I felt a surge of anger and fear. "What do you mean, if you wanted to attend? Are you planning to go?" Kate shook her head vehemently. "No, of course not. I wanted to tell you because I didn't want there to be any secrets. I have no intention of seeing him, but I thought you should know." Her transparency helped, but the news still hit me like a punch in the gut. The thought of David being so close brought back a flood of memories and insecurities. "I appreciate you telling me," I said, my voice tight, "but it's still hard to hear." The week leading up to the event was tense. We tried to maintain our routine, but the looming presence of David in town was like a dark cloud hanging over us. I found myself growing more anxious and irritable, despite Kate's reassurances. The day of the signing event arrived, and I couldn't shake the feeling of dread. Kate had promised to avoid the event, but I decided to take matters into my own hands. I needed to confront my fears head-on, so I told her I was going to the comic book store to see David myself. "Are you sure?" Kate asked, worry etched on her face. "You don't have to do this, Mark." "I need to," I replied, determined. "I need to see him, to put this behind us once and for all." As I arrived at the store, the atmosphere was electric with excitement. Fans lined up to meet David, who sat at a table signing autographs and chatting with admirers. I watched from a distance, my heart pounding in my chest. When the crowd finally thinned, I approached him. David looked up and recognition flickered in his eyes. "Mark, right?" he said, his voice cautious. "That's right," I replied, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside me. "I wanted to talk to you." David nodded, gesturing to an empty chair nearby. "Sure, let's talk." I sat down, taking a deep breath. "You need to know the impact you had on my family," I began, my voice tinged with anger. "Your relationship with Kate nearly destroyed us." David looked genuinely remorseful. "Mark, I'm truly sorry. I never meant to cause harm. I thought it was just a harmless fling, but I see now how wrong I was." Hearing his apology brought a surprising sense of relief. It wasn't harmless, I said, my voice softening. It hurt us deeply, but we're working through it. I just needed to hear you acknowledge what happened. David nodded, his expression earnest. I understand. I won't contact Kate again. I hope you both find healing. I stood up, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. Thank you, I said simply, before turning and walking out of the store. When I returned home, Kate was waiting anxiously. How did it go? She asked, her eyes searching mine. It went well, I said, a small smile forming on my lips. He apologized and promised not to contact you again. I feel like a weight has been lifted. Kate let out a sigh of relief, hugging me tightly. I'm so proud of you, Mark. Thank you for facing this. We stood there, holding each other, feeling a newfound sense of peace. The encounter with David had been necessary, a final step in our journey toward healing. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was a significant milestone. As the days turned into weeks, the tension began to ease. We continued our counseling sessions and worked on strengthening our relationship. The fear and doubt that once dominated our lives started to fade, replaced by a growing sense of trust and love. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Kate turned to me, her eyes filled with gratitude. Mark, I know we've been through so much, but I truly believe we're stronger now. Thank you for not giving up on us. I smiled, feeling a deep sense of contentment. I couldn't imagine my life without you, I said softly. We've come a long way, and I believe our love is worth fighting for. As the sun dipped below the horizon, we sat in comfortable silence, knowing that the journey ahead would still have its challenges. But we were ready to face them together, stronger and more united than ever before. The confrontation with David was a turning point for us. It brought a sense of closure that allowed us to move forward with renewed focus. Life began to settle into a rhythm that felt normal, and for the first time in a long while, I felt genuinely hopeful about our future. Our counseling sessions became less frequent, a sign of the progress we were making. We spent more time together as a family, creating new memories that helped to heal old wounds. One Saturday, we decided to take a spontaneous trip to the mountains for a weekend getaway. The fresh air and beautiful scenery provided a much-needed escape from the daily grind. As we hiked up a winding trail, the kids ran ahead, their laughter echoing through the trees. Kate and I walked hand in hand, taking in the serenity of our surroundings. It felt good to be away from the distractions of work and technology, to focus on each other and the simple joys of life. At the top of the trail, we found a clearing with a breathtaking view of the valley below. We spread out a blanket and sat down, enjoying a picnic lunch while the kids explored nearby. This is perfect, Kate said, leaning against me. I feel like we're really starting to find our way back to each other. I smiled, kissing the top of her head. Yeah, it feels good. We've come a long way. As we sat there, I realized just how far we had come. The pain and betrayal that once threatened to tear us apart were now memories, lessons that had made us stronger. We were more honest with each other and more appreciative of the love we shared. That evening, after the kids were asleep in the cabin we had rented, Kate and I sat by the fireplace, a bottle of wine between us. The fire crackled, casting a warm glow that added to the intimacy of the moment. Mark, Kate said softly, there's something I've been wanting to ask you. I turned to her, curious. What is it? She took a deep breath, her eyes searching mine. I know we've been through a lot, and it hasn't been easy, but I want us to renew our vows. I want to recommit to each other, to show that we've come through the fire stronger and more in love than ever. Her words took me by surprise, but as I looked into her eyes, I felt a surge of emotion. I would love that, I said, my voice filled with sincerity. It would be an honor to renew our vows with you. Tears welled up in Kate's eyes as she leaned in to kiss me. Thank you, Mark. I love you so much. I love you too, I whispered against her lips. The idea of renewing our vows gave us something to look forward to, a celebration of our journey and the love that had endured. We decided to keep it simple, inviting only close family and friends to a small ceremony in our backyard. As we planned the event, I found myself reflecting on the past year. It had been a tumultuous time, filled with pain and uncertainty, but it had also brought us closer together. We had faced our fears, confronted our insecurities, and emerged stronger because of it. The day of the ceremony arrived, and our backyard was transformed into a beautiful, intimate setting. Twinkling lights hung from the trees, and a small arch adorned with flowers stood at the center. Our closest family and friends gathered their smiles and support, a testament to the love and resilience that had carried us through. As Kate walked down the aisle, I felt a swell of emotion. She looked radiant, her eyes filled with love and determination. When she reached me, we joined hands, and the officiant began to speak. Today, we gather to celebrate the renewal of vows between Mark and Kate. Their journey has been one of love, perseverance, and growth. They stand before us now, stronger and more united than ever before. We exchanged our vows, promising to continue loving and supporting each other through whatever life might bring. As we spoke, I felt a deep sense of gratitude for the second chance we had been given. When the ceremony ended, we shared a kiss, the applause of our loved ones ringing in our ears. The reception that followed was filled with laughter, joy, and the warmth of those who had stood by us. As the night drew to a close, Kate and I stole away for a quiet moment alone. We stood under the twinkling lights, holding each other close. "We did it," she whispered, her eyes shining with happiness. "Yes, we did," I replied, feeling a profound sense of contentment. "Here's to a new beginning, Kate. I can't wait to see what the future holds for us." Together, we looked up at the stars, knowing that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together, stronger and more in love than ever before. The renewal of our vows marked a beautiful new chapter in our lives. And for a while, everything seemed perfect. We continued to strengthen our bond, enjoying the simple pleasures of family life and appreciating the love we had fought so hard to preserve. However, life has a way of testing even the strongest of foundations, and an unexpected turn of events threatened to reopen old wounds. One evening, while we were having dinner with our closest friends, Jenna and Tom, the conversation turned to an upcoming comic book convention. Jenna, a longtime comic book enthusiast, was excitedly talking about the event. "Guess who's going to be there?" she said, her eyes sparkling. "David Thompson. Can you believe it?" The name sent a chill down my spine, and I noticed Kate stiffen beside me. We exchanged a quick, uneasy glance. "That's interesting," Kate managed to say, trying to keep her tone light. I hadn't heard. Jenna, oblivious to the tension, continued. "Yeah, he's doing a special panel and signing session. It's going to be amazing. Mark, Kate, you guys should come with us. It'll be just like old times." The suggestion hung in the air, and I could feel the weight of it pressing down on us. I cleared my throat, trying to sound casual. "I'm not sure that's a good idea, Jenna. We've got a lot going on right now." Tom, sensing the discomfort, quickly changed the subject, and the evening continued without further mention of the convention. But the damage was done. The name David Thompson had resurfaced, bringing with it a flood of emotions and memories we had worked so hard to overcome. That night, as we lay in bed, I turned to Kate. "We need to talk about this," I said softly. She nodded, her expression troubled. "I know. I'm sorry, Mark. I didn't expect his name to come up like that." "It's not your fault," I replied, "but it's brought back a lot of feelings. I thought we had moved past this, but it's clear that the wound is still there." Kate reached for my hand, her grip firm. "Mark, I love you. I'm committed to us, to our family. David is in the past. I don't want to go to the convention, and I don't want anything to do with him." Her words were reassuring, but the doubts lingered. "I know you mean that, Kate, but seeing him again, even just hearing his name, has stirred up a lot of insecurities. I don't want to go back to that dark place." She moved closer, her eyes filled with sincerity. "We've come so far, Mark. Don't let this pull us back. Let's talk to Dr. Hayes about it. We'll work through it, just like we have with everything else." Agreeing to her suggestion, we scheduled an emergency session with Dr. Hayes. Sitting in her familiar office, I felt a mix of frustration and determination. "Dr. Hayes, I thought we were past this," I began, "but hearing David's name again has brought back all the doubts and fears. I don't want to live in the shadow of his presence anymore." Dr. Hayes nodded, her expression compassionate. "It's understandable, Mark. Trauma, especially emotional trauma, has a way of resurfacing unexpectedly. The important thing is how you address it. You've already taken the first step by acknowledging your feelings and seeking help." Kate spoke up, her voice steady. "I don't want David to have any power over us, Mark. I want to focus on our future, not the mistakes of the past. How do we move forward from here? Dr. Hayes leaned forward, her gaze intent. Reaffirming your commitment to each other is crucial. You've built a strong foundation, but it's natural for old wounds to reopen. Use this as an opportunity to reinforce your bond. Continue to communicate openly and support each other, and perhaps consider setting new boundaries to protect your relationship. The session helped to ease some of the tension, but the underlying issue remained. We left Dr. Hayes' office with a renewed sense of purpose, determined to face this challenge together. The following week, as the comic book convention approached, we made a conscious decision to avoid it entirely. Instead, we planned a family trip to a quiet lakeside cabin, far from the noise and distractions of the city. The cabin was a perfect retreat, surrounded by towering pines and the serene beauty of the lake. We spent our days fishing, hiking, and playing board games with the kids. The peaceful setting allowed us to reconnect and focus on what truly mattered. One evening, as we sat by the campfire, Kate turned to me, her face illuminated by the flickering flames. "Mark, I'm so grateful for you. For us. This trip has reminded me of how strong we are together." I smiled, feeling a deep sense of contentment. "I feel the same way. We've faced a lot, but we've come out stronger. This is where we belong, right here together." As we watched the stars twinkle above, I realized that while old wounds might reopen, they didn't have to define us. We had the power to choose how we responded, to strengthen our bond, and to continue building a future filled with love and trust. And so, we embraced the new beginning that lay ahead, confident in the knowledge that no matter what challenges we faced, we would face them together, stronger and more united than ever before. Our trip to the lakeside cabin brought a renewed sense of peace and unity, but life, as it often does, had more surprises in store for us. We returned home, refreshed and ready to tackle our routines, but the tranquility we had found was soon disrupted by an unexpected encounter. A few weeks after our return, I was at work, wrapping up a particularly hectic day. My phone buzzed with a text message from Kate. "Need to talk when you get home. Something happened." Anxiety gripped me as I read her words. I hurried through the remainder of my tasks and drove home, my mind racing with possibilities. As I walked through the door, I found Kate sitting at the kitchen table, her face pale and her hands trembling slightly. "Kate, what's wrong?" I asked, rushing to her side. She took a deep breath, looking up at me with worried eyes. "Mark, I ran into David today." My heart sank. "Where? What happened?" "I was at the grocery store, just picking up a few things. I didn't even see him at first, but he approached me," she explained. "He was friendly and said he wanted to apologize again, to make sure I was okay. I told him I didn't want to talk and tried to leave, but he kept following me, insisting that he just wanted a chance to explain himself." Anger and fear surged within me. "Did he threaten you? Are you okay?" "No, he didn't threaten me. He just wouldn't leave me alone," Kate said, her voice shaking. "Eventually, I told him that if he didn't stop, I would call the police. He backed off after that, but it was really unsettling." I sat down next to her, taking her hands in mine. "I'm so sorry you had to go through that. We need to take this seriously. We can't let him disrupt our lives again." Kate nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I thought we were done with him, Mark. I don't want to feel like we're constantly looking over our shoulders. We'll talk to Dr. Hayes again, and maybe even consider a restraining order if he doesn't stop," I said, trying to reassure her. "We'll do whatever it takes to keep our family safe." Our next session with Dr. Hayes was intense. We recounted the encounter, expressing our fears and frustrations. "Encounters like this can be very triggering," Dr. Hayes said. "It's important to take steps to protect yourselves, while also focusing on your healing process. A restraining order is a good option if you feel threatened, but you should also reinforce your support network. Surround yourselves with people who can offer help and reassurance." We decided to take her advice and reached out to close friends and family, letting them know what had happened and asking for their support. Jenna and Tom were particularly understanding, offering to help with the kids and providing a listening ear whenever we needed it. In the meantime, we filed a report with the police and began the process of obtaining a restraining order against David. The legal proceedings were stressful, but knowing that we were taking action helped to alleviate some of the anxiety. Despite these efforts, the shadow of David's presence lingered. We tried to focus on our daily lives, but the encounter had shaken us deeply. One evening, as we sat together on the porch, Kate turned to me with a determined look in her eyes. "Mark, I don't want David to have any power over us," she said firmly. "We've worked too hard to rebuild our lives. We need to reclaim our peace and not let him dictate how we live." I nodded, feeling a surge of pride in her strength. "You're right. We can't let fear control us. We'll continue to protect ourselves, but we'll also focus on living our lives fully and joyfully." With that resolve, we made a conscious effort to reclaim our sense of normalcy. We planned fun activities with the kids, spent quality time together, and continued our counseling sessions. Slowly but surely, the fear began to recede, replaced by a growing sense of empowerment. One Saturday, we decided to visit a local art fair, something we hadn't done in years. The fair was bustling with people, the air filled with the sounds of laughter and the aroma of food from various stalls. As we wandered through the exhibits, admiring the creativity on display, I felt a sense of normalcy returning. We stopped at a booth showcasing beautiful handmade jewelry, and Kate's eyes lit up as she admired a delicate silver necklace. "It's beautiful," she said, turning to me with a smile. "Let's get it," I replied, wanting to see that smile more often. As the vendor wrapped the necklace, I noticed a familiar figure out of the corner of my eye. My heart skipped a beat as I recognized David, standing at a nearby booth, his eyes scanning the crowd. Panic threatened to rise, but I took a deep breath and turned back to Kate. "Mark, what's wrong?" she asked, sensing my tension. "David's here," I said quietly, "but we're not going to let him ruin this. Let's enjoy the rest of the fair." Kate's eyes widened in surprise, but she nodded, her resolve matching mine. We continued to explore the fair, making a point to stay close to crowds and avoid isolated areas. Despite the initial shock, we managed to enjoy ourselves, finding solace in each other's company. When we returned home that evening, we were both exhausted, but felt a renewed sense of strength. We had faced our fear head-on and refused to let it control us. As we settled in for the night, Kate turned to me, her expression determined. "We're going to be okay, Mark. No matter what happens, we'll face it together." I hugged her tightly, feeling a deep sense of love and gratitude. "Yes, we will. Together, we can handle anything." And so we continued our journey, facing each new challenge with resilience and love. The past had its hold, but it no longer defined us. We were building a future filled with hope, one step at a time. The days following our encounter with David at the art fair were a mixture of anxiety and determination. We knew we couldn't allow him to keep casting a shadow over our lives. With the support of our friends, family, and Dr. Hayes, we pushed forward, intent on reclaiming our peace. The restraining order was granted, providing a sense of legal protection. It was a small but significant victory, one that made us feel more secure. We focused on creating new, positive memories, filling our days with laughter and love. One Saturday morning, we decided to host a barbecue in our backyard, inviting our closest friends and family. The weather was perfect, and the smell of grilled food filled the air. Children ran around, their laughter echoing through the yard, while adults mingled and chatted. I stood by the grill flipping burgers when Tom approached, holding 2 beers. "How are you holding up, buddy?" he asked, handing me one. I took the beer, grateful for his friendship. "Better, I think. It's been tough, but we're getting through it. The restraining order helped a lot." Tom nodded, taking a sip of his beer. "You're doing the right thing, Mark. Surrounding yourself with people who care about you and Kate is important. We're all here for you." I smiled, feeling a wave of gratitude. "Thanks, Tom. That means a lot." As the day went on, I watched Kate laughing with Jenna, their faces lit up with genuine happiness. It was moments like these that reminded me of why we fought so hard to rebuild our lives. We were surrounded by love and support, and that made all the difference. Later that evening, after everyone had left and the kids were in bed, Kate and I sat on the porch, enjoying the quiet of the night. The stars were bright, and the air was cool, a perfect end to a perfect day. "Today was amazing," Kate said, leaning her head on my shoulder. "It felt so good to be surrounded by everyone we love." I wrapped my arm around her, pulling her close. "Yeah, it really was. We're lucky to have such great friends and family." She sighed contentedly. "Mark, I've been thinking, maybe it's time we did something big. something to really mark this new chapter in our lives. I turned to her, curious. What do you have in mind? Let's take a trip, she said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Somewhere we've always wanted to go but never had the chance. Let's make new memories. Just the four of us. The idea filled me with a sense of excitement and anticipation. That sounds perfect. Where should we go? Kate smiled, a mischievous glint in her eye. How about Hawaii? We've always talked about going, and it would be a dream come true. Hawaii. Just the thought of it brought a smile to my face. Hawaii it is. Let's do it. We spent the next few weeks planning our trip, the anticipation building with each passing day. The kids were ecstatic when we told them, their excitement infectious. We researched activities, booked accommodations, and counted down the days until our departure. The day finally arrived, and as we boarded the plane, I felt a sense of exhilaration. This trip was more than just a vacation. It was a celebration of our resilience, a testament to the strength of our family. From the moment we landed in Hawaii, we were swept up in the beauty and wonder of the islands. We spent our days exploring lush rainforests, snorkeling in crystal-clear waters, and soaking up the sun on pristine beaches. The kids were in awe, their faces lit up with joy and wonder at every new adventure. One evening, as the sun set over the ocean, we took a family walk along the beach. The sky was ablaze with colors, and the gentle sound of the waves provided a soothing backdrop. This is incredible, Kate said, her eyes reflecting the colors of the sunset. I can't believe we're really here. I squeezed her hand, feeling a deep sense of contentment. We deserve this. After everything we've been through, we deserve this happiness. The kids ran ahead, chasing crabs along the shore, their laughter filling the air. Watching them, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. We had faced so many challenges, but we had come through stronger and more united than ever. As we continued our walk, Kate turned to me, her expression serious. Mark, I want you to know how much I appreciate everything you've done. You've stood by me, supported me, and helped us rebuild our lives. I couldn't have done it without you. Her words touched me deeply. We did it together, Kate. You've been just as strong, just as committed. I'm so proud of us, of our family. She smiled, her eyes brimming with emotion. I love you, Mark, more than words can express. I love you too, I replied, pulling her into a kiss. Always and forever. As the sun dipped below the horizon, we stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, the promise of a bright future ahead of us. We had faced our fears, overcome our challenges, and emerged stronger. Together, we were unstoppable. And so, we embraced this new beginning, confident in our love and the strength of our family. The past was behind us, and the future was ours to create, filled with hope, joy, and endless possibilities. Our time in Hawaii was magical, filled with moments that brought our family closer together. As the trip came to an end, we returned home with renewed spirits and a sense of peace that had been missing for too long. Life settled back into its familiar rhythm, but as the days passed, we were reminded that challenges can arise when least expected. It was a crisp autumn morning when the first hint of trouble appeared. I was at work, engrossed in a meeting, when my phone buzzed with a message from Kate. Call me when you can. It's urgent. Concerned, I excused myself and stepped out to make the call. Kate answered on the first ring, her voice trembling. Mark, something's wrong. I found an envelope in the mailbox this morning. It was addressed to me, but there's no return address. What's inside? I asked, my heart pounding. Photos, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Photos of us, from our trip to Hawaii, and there's a note. Bring it to Dr. Hayes' office, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. We'll meet there and figure out what to do. We arrived at Dr. Hayes' office within an hour. Kate handed over the envelope, her hands shaking. Dr. Hayes examined the contents carefully, her expression growing more serious with each passing moment. This is concerning, she said finally, looking up at us. The fact that someone has been watching you and knows where you live is a clear violation of your privacy and safety. Kate's eyes filled with tears. What should we do? We can't keep living like this. Dr. Hayes nodded sympathetically. The first step is to involve the authorities. They need to be aware of this new development. I also recommend increasing your home security and being vigilant about your surroundings. We followed her advice, filing a report with the police and installing a comprehensive security system at home. Despite these precautions, the sense of unease lingered, a constant reminder of the threat that loomed over us. Weeks passed without incident, and just as we began to feel a semblance of normalcy returning, another envelope arrived. This time it was left on our doorstep, the contents even more disturbing than before. In addition to more photos, there was a typed letter. "I'm watching. You can't hide from me." The fear that had subsided now came rushing back with full force. We convened with Dr. Hayes again, our anxiety palpable. "This is escalating," Dr. Hayes said, her tone grave. "It's important to take every precaution. Have you considered hiring a private investigator to help identify who's behind this?" We hadn't, but the suggestion made sense. We reached out to a reputable investigator named Alex Turner, who agreed to take on our case. Alex was thorough and professional, providing a detailed plan to uncover the stalker's identity. In the meantime, we tried to maintain a sense of normalcy for the kids, who were thankfully unaware of the full extent of the situation. We continued our daily routines, but the constant vigilance took its toll. One evening, as we were getting ready for bed, Kate turned to me, her eyes filled with exhaustion and fear. "Mark, I'm so tired of living like this. I just want it to be over." I held her close, feeling the weight of our shared burden. "I know, Kate. We'll get through this. We have to stay strong for each other, and for the kids." Our resolve was tested yet again when Alex called with an update. "I've identified the sender," he said. "It's David. He's been behind this all along." The revelation hit us like a ton of bricks. Despite the restraining order, despite everything we had done to protect ourselves, David had managed to infiltrate our lives once more. We immediately contacted the police, providing them with the evidence Alex had gathered. An arrest warrant was issued for David, and the authorities assured us that they would do everything in their power to apprehend him. The waiting was excruciating. Each day felt like an eternity as we waited for news. Then, one afternoon, we received the call we had been hoping for. David had been arrested. Relief washed over us, but it was tempered by the knowledge that the legal process was just beginning. We would have to testify, reliving the trauma in a courtroom setting. It was daunting. David's arrest brought a momentary sense of relief, but the impending legal battle loomed large over us. The thought of testifying, of reliving our nightmare in a courtroom, filled us with dread. Yet we knew it was a necessary step towards reclaiming our peace. Our first court appearance was scheduled for early November. The days leading up to it were a blur of preparation and anxiety. We met with the prosecutor, who assured us that our testimony would be crucial in securing a conviction. Despite their reassurances, the weight of what lay ahead was overwhelming. The morning of the trial, I woke up early, unable to sleep. Kate lay beside me, her eyes wide open, reflecting the same fears that plagued my mind. "Today's the day," I said softly, taking her hand. "We're going to get through this." She nodded, her grip tightening around mine. Together. We arrived at the courthouse, our friends Jenna and Tom by our side for support. The building's imposing facade only added to the gravity of the situation. As we walked through the metal detectors and into the courtroom, I felt a lump forming in my throat. David was already there, seated with his attorney. His presence sent a shiver down my spine, but I forced myself to stay composed. This was our chance to put an end to his torment. The proceedings began, and the prosecutor laid out the case against David. Evidence was presented, including the photos and letters he had sent. When it was time for us to testify, my heart pounded in my chest. I took the stand first, recounting the events that had led to our restraining order and the subsequent harassment. As I spoke, I could feel David's eyes on me, but I refused to let him intimidate me. This was our story, and it needed to be told. When it was Kate's turn, she spoke with a quiet strength that filled me with pride. She described the fear and anxiety we had endured, the impact on our family, and our determination to reclaim our lives. The defense tried to undermine our testimony, painting David as a misguided individual who meant no harm. But the evidence was irrefutable, and our resolve unshakable. After what felt like an eternity, the jury was sent to deliberate. We waited anxiously, the weight of the past months pressing down on us. Finally, the jury returned with their verdict, guilty on all counts. Relief washed over us, but it was bittersweet. David would face the consequences of his actions, but the scars he had left behind would take time to heal. As we left the courtroom, Jenna and Tom embraced us, their support unwavering. "You did it," Jenna said, tears in her eyes. "It's over." "Thank you," Kate whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "We couldn't have done this without you." The following days were a whirlwind of emotions. The news of David's conviction spread, bringing a sense of closure but also reopening old wounds. We continued our therapy sessions with Dr. Hayes, focusing on healing and rebuilding our lives. One evening, as we sat on the porch, watching the sunset, Kate turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "Mark, I've been thinking a lot about what we've been through. It's been so hard, but it's also shown me how strong we are together." I nodded, understanding her sentiment. "We've faced so much and we're still here, still standing. That says a lot about us." "I want to do something positive with our experience," she said, her eyes bright with determination. "Maybe we can help others who are going through similar situations." The idea resonated deeply with me. "I think that's a great idea. We can share our story, offer support, and maybe even work with organizations that help victims of stalking and harassment." Kate smiled, a genuine hopeful smile that warmed my heart. "Let's do it. Let's turn this into something good." We began by reaching out to local support groups and organizations, sharing our story, and offering to volunteer. The response was overwhelmingly positive, and we found a new sense of purpose in helping others. Through our pain, we discovered a strength we hadn't known we possessed, and a way to give back to those in need. Our journey was far from over, but we faced each new day with hope and resilience. The shadows of the past no longer held us captive. Instead, they fueled our determination to create a brighter future. As we stood together, hand in hand, watching the sun dip below the horizon, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. Our love, our family, and our newfound purpose gave us the strength to overcome any obstacle. And so, we embraced this new chapter of our lives, confident in our ability to turn darkness into light and adversity into strength. Together, we were unstoppable, ready to face whatever the future held. With David behind bars and a newfound purpose guiding us, life began to take on a brighter hue. Our involvement in support groups and organizations not only helped others, but also aided in our healing process. We found solace in sharing our experiences, offering a helping hand, and making connections with people who had faced similar trials. One afternoon, while volunteering at a local support center, Kate and I were approached by a woman named Laura. She was in her mid-30s, with a kind face etched with worry. "I've heard your story," she said, her voice tinged with hope. "It's given me strength. I'm going through something similar, and I don't know where to turn." We sat down with Laura, listening as she recounted her ordeal. Her story mirrored ours in many ways, and it was heart-wrenching to hear. But as we offered advice and shared our journey, I saw a flicker of determination in her eyes. It was moments like these that affirmed our decision to turn our pain into purpose. Our work with the support groups expanded, leading us to organize workshops and seminars on coping mechanisms, legal advice, and emotional healing. We partnered with local law enforcement to raise awareness about the importance of taking stalking and harassment seriously, and we even spoke at schools to educate young people about the warning signs and how to seek help. One evening, after a particularly successful seminar, Kate and I sat down to reflect on how far we had come. "I never imagined we'd be doing this," she said, a hint of amazement in her voice, "turning our nightmare into something that helps others." I smiled, feeling a deep sense of pride. "It's incredible, isn't it? We've taken back control of our lives and are helping others do the same." As we continued our advocacy work, our family life flourished. The kids were thriving, enjoying school and their extracurricular activities. We made sure to spend quality time together, creating new memories and cherishing the bond that had grown even stronger through our trials. One weekend, we decided to take a trip to the mountains, a place where we could disconnect from the world and reconnect with each other. The air was crisp, the scenery breathtaking, and the sense of peace palpable. We hiked through forest trails, the kids marveling at the wildlife and the beauty of nature. As we reached a scenic overlook, we paused to take in the view. The valley below stretched out in a tapestry of colors, the river winding its way through the landscape like a ribbon of silver. "This is amazing," Kate said, her voice filled with awe. "I'm so glad we came here." I wrapped my arm around her, feeling the warmth of her presence. "Me too. It's moments like these that remind me of how far we've come and how strong we are." The kids ran ahead, their laughter echoing through the trees. We watched them, our hearts full of love and gratitude. Our journey had been fraught with challenges, but it had also brought us closer and forged our bond in the crucible of adversity. As we sat around the campfire that night, roasting marshmallows and sharing stories, I felt a deep sense of contentment. The stars above us were bright, a reminder of the infinite possibilities that lay ahead. "Mom, Dad," our daughter Emily said, her eyes reflecting the firelight, "I'm really proud of you. You've been so brave, and you're helping so many people." Tears welled up in my eyes as I looked at her. "Thank you, sweetheart. That means the world to us." Kate reached over and squeezed my hand. "We couldn't have done it without you two. You've been our inspiration, our reason to keep going." As the fire crackled and the night wore on, we shared our dreams and hopes for the future. We talked about the places we wanted to visit, the goals we wanted to achieve, and the ways we could continue to make a difference. In the days that followed, we returned home with renewed vigor. Our advocacy work expanded, reaching more people and making a greater impact. We spoke at national conferences, collaborated with other organizations, and even contributed to policy changes that provided better protection for victims of stalking and harassment. Through it all, our love and dedication to each other remained steadfast. We faced each challenge with courage, drawing strength from our bond and our shared purpose. The shadows of the past no longer haunted us. They had become a part of our story, a testament to our resilience and our ability to overcome. As we stood on the threshold of a new beginning, I knew that whatever lay ahead, we would face it together. Our journey has shown us that love, when tested and true, can conquer even the darkest of times. And with that love, we were ready to embrace the future, hand in hand, hearts united, and spirits unbreakable.